Welcome to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. My name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Our objective is to enthuse, inspire, energize, and empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes here in BW and beyond. We do so by inviting these entrepreneurs into our makeshift studio. Sometimes we call them to the restaurant, sometimes we go to our studio, and we ask them to share their experiential knowledge, their experiences and their expertise, and we ask them as many questions as we can, aimed at empowering you also as a viewer. Dumela, hello and welcome to another episode, a great, wonderful episode of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. And this podcast is only great because of people like you. Please do me a favor so that we can connect and move this thing forward by hitting that subscribe button. We really need for you to be part of our growing Nuggets family. I have a wonderful, wonderful guest in Mr. Welcome Matsemane, but as is our custom, we prefer that the guests introduce themselves.
Right.
So be kind enough to maybe set out a little bit of your background, your CV, and that sort of thing.
Sure. Thank you, Mogobe. My name is Welcome Matsemane. By training, I'm a doctor. I'm a medical doctor. I graduated about 8 years ago from medical school. Since then, we've had quite an interesting journey with my wife. We've changed careers. I've changed careers from medicine to business. We do quite a bit of real estate, and we ventured into education as well. My wife is an attorney by training, and she's also ventured into private practice as well as education. So we're excited to be here. Hello to the listeners, and can't wait to have a great conversation with you.
Yeah,
Sure.
This is great. Now, tell us when you graduated. You said 8 years ago. From where you graduated, and a little bit about medicine in terms of what attracted you to it.
Sure. So I graduated about 8 years ago. We were the first. I was part of the first group to train in Botswana. So I finished my Form 5 here. I went to government school for senior school. After finishing with that, I was.
So you don't have to be from an English medium school to do well, right?
No. Not at all, because my entire secondary education was in government schools. I went to Tloga, I went to Naledi, like everybody else. And that being said, I also didn't do quite well in my JC, but I was the second best student in Botswana for my BGCSE.
Oh.
So you don't have to go to an English medium, and you also don't have to always have been the best student in order to do well at a later time.
Okay.
So graduated 2007. Finished school 2007, 2008, started at UB, and that's about the time when the government also wanted to start the medical school here. So we were the first group to be enrolled to study medicine here at UB.
Wow.
Yeah. So the norm had been that, you do your 1 or 2 years here in UB, you go outside, you go to Australia, whatever, the UK, and so on and so forth. You do your medicine, and then you come back to Botswana, hopefully. So what the government wanted to do was to retain more doctors, because people would go outside, they wouldn't come back. So started the medical school here. So we were the pioneers. There were 36 of us, and I was one of the 36. So that was quite interesting. What attracted me to medicine was that I honestly love medicine. I love interacting with people. I love challenges. And I think it's the same thing that attracts me to entrepreneurship. I like taking on a new challenge. So in medicine, we're taught that every patient is different, every patient is unique, but we follow the same approach. Same thing with business.
We're going to talk about your two entrepreneurial ventures, but before we do, just give me an idea of how successful we have been as a country in producing local doctors, in terms of, are we now having a significant impact in the community as a result of having our own medical school?
Oh yes, the impact can't be measured. That's how big the impact has been of the medical school. Right from the onset, when you look at the training of a doctor, you're looking at who's training the doctor. So medical and affiliated expertise in terms of the field of medicine, biomedical sciences, and so on and so forth. So you have to bring those people in. In addition to teaching, medical training is very hands-on. So the people who are teaching the will-be doctors are also practicing in the country. So that is a benefit to the government in that way as well. If you look at retention, we used to have a system whereby I think only probably 20% of doctors actually came back to Botswana after studying outside. And now you have a system where most Botswana who graduate here in Botswana choose to practice here, start the practice here in Botswana. And we've gone further. There's now a lot of specialization programs. So Botswana is actually producing specialists now.
Wow.
With collaboration
How many
with...
doctors are you producing annually?
So the first group was 36. The second group, I think, was 48. And it's been steadily climbing from there. I think the goal, this is 8-year-old information, but the goal at the time for the medical school was to get to 96 doctors per year. I don't know if they've reached that yet. I know definitely that a lot of the colleagues that I graduated with from medical school have gone on to specialize. I would say 80% of our class are now specialists here in Botswana. So leaps and bounds. That's the
Let's
growth.
talk. Let's talk about Iana learning. What does it do? Iana.
Sure.
Pulayana. I suppose that's what it means.
Sure. Pulayana Baghetso, and that's the name of our preschool. We are preschool based in Gaborone Block 8. And Iana is actually the name of my daughter. We have two girls, my wife and I, 5 years old and 2 years old.
Wow.
Iana is the firstborn. Inile is the secondborn. So both girls. So I've got my
Inile is a beautiful name. My nephew's son is called Inile.
Yeah, it's a beautiful name. Yeah. It rolls off the tongue very nicely.
Yes, it does.
So Iana is our daughter. She's 5 years old now. At the time when we started the school, she was 3 years old, and she has isolated speech delay. So she had trouble grasping words and enunciating and so on and so forth. But it was time for her to go to school. So we had a big challenge in identifying a school that would cater to her. So being the ambitious people that we were, we decided to start the school that would cater to...
So it's a combination of homeschooling and outside schooling, really.
Sure. So it's meant for her, but it benefits everybody else. So we used her as a guinea pig to say, what kind of resources can we put in place? What kind of school can we build to make sure that she has the best of the best? And that has led us to 3 years down the line being at full capacity.
Which is how many students?
120 students.
Wow.
Close to 20 staff members. And full capacity for the past 2 years with no slots available.
How many physical buildings? Where is it located?
So it's located in Gaborone Block 8. That was we've always been there. We've never moved. The building, like I said, has been at capacity since year 2. So we're looking to expand in 2024 to another location.
The only sort of school of that kind that I know is something academy. Let me just try to remember the name. Block 8.
Iana.
That's it called? Yeah. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, so it's not far from Choppy's area, somewhere there?
Yeah, so it's very close to New Era College, our new school, that side of Block 8, Upper Junction side of Block 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you, of course, running it with your wife. How challenging is it to work with your spouse?
Let's hope she forgives me for this one. It's wonderful to run it with my wife because of the inspiration behind the school. So we have a common goal.
Okay.
That makes life very easy in that we're both driving towards the same goal. We may want to get there different ways, but we both come back to default settings when it comes to does this get us to our goal or does this not? So having that very clear has been a guiding principle.
Yes.
That we're driving towards this. This is the kind of school we want to have. This is why we want to have it. So when it comes to breaking deadlocks or tiebreakers in decision making, that has been our guiding principle. Also, what we do is that we divide tasks very well. She takes care of one aspect of the school, I take care of the other. So we work very well in that respect.
Yeah. Now, in terms of the skill set, I mean, neither of you have, been trained in special education,
Sure.
or even in education for that matter. How did you bridge the skills gap to get started? And why wasn't that a barrier for you?
So the way we approached it was the way we approach everything else. Being systematic, learning all we can about the industry we're about to get into, and being bold. We have a saying, it's a ready, fire, aim.
I like it. It's my saying too.
Yeah, ready, fire, aim. The quicker you can get started with the right information, the more you can see what works on the ground and adapt. So that's the approach that we took. We were very clear on the goal. We wanted a school that was great, a school that wouldn't other our child, and a school where we could make a profit as well. Yeah. So
it ticks all those boxes.
Oh yes, and another thing we do is try to be very, very innovative. Us being a relatively, if you look at government school versus private education, in our school, for instance, we would have say 100 students, but in government they would have thousands of students. So we're more agile. We can try different things. We can try different teaching methods, see what works, quickly course correct, and keep it moving.
Wow. I like that approach. Now, this is not your only venture, but before we talk about the second one, Forbes 30 under 30, how did you qualify and how did you become part of it?
Sure. So for Forbes this year, the theme was laying the foundation for entrepreneurship in the 21st century. Now, when we talk about foundation, you're talking about grassroots level, and you can take that as low as you can. So in our case, we were taking it as low as excuse me, we're taking it as low as preschool level. How do we foster a spirit of entrepreneurship in kids as young as 2 years old? Is that possible? What do you do? What sticks and what doesn't? So we were fortunate enough to have a forum, panel discussion with the Assistant Minister of Education as well as the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Entrepreneurship around that thought process of actually instilling values of entrepreneurship, skill sets, and so on from a very young age. And it's been quite an eye-opener, and we were very happy to also share our experiences.
What do you do in that regard? Do you teach them to code at a very young age, at kindergarten level?
So we believe that it's twofold. First of all, at Iana, we believe that every child is different. So it's quite difficult to specialize at that age as to what a child will enjoy. So one child may enjoy tech, robotics, and so on. Another child may be into farming or working with their hands, or maybe more artistic. You never really know. So our approach is exposure. We want to expose them to a lot of different things. We want them to be not unidimensional, but multidimensional in their thinking of what's possible, what they can do at that time, what they can achieve if they put their mind to it. So we have quite a lot of programs. Our teaching approach employs what they call the Montessori style of teaching, whereby
I've heard of that, although I don't know what it means.
So Montessori style of teaching, essentially it looks at the child and what they would like to learn, the pace they would like to learn at, and tailors the education to them. So we have a curriculum, we follow the government curriculum, and then we take the curriculum and put a big twist on it and say, okay, we want to teach this week about the color green. Let's get them out of the classroom and go show them a bunch of leaves and say this one is brown, this one is green, and that's the difference between green and brown. Let's take them out of the classroom and say, instead of ABC, this is how you can learn about ABC. And that's where you see young minds really coming to life, and you
practicalize the learning.
Oh yes, you practicalize the learning, and you make it fun, you make it rewarding, and kids are able to not be shy to express their interests. Wow. And then you, as the teacher or the parent, you can pick up on that and say, you know what, I think my child is actually leaning towards the arts, or wants to tinker with this toy maybe there's some engineering in there or something like that. Yeah.
2 questions before we leave that area. First, since you're using your child as a guinea pig, how did it turn out?
So it turned out very well. When we started the school, she was saying very few words at 3 years old. Wasn't at the level of her peers. So what we did was, first of all, change our mindset and say, okay, there's nothing wrong with you. You are normal. More than just being our child, we believe that you have a lot of potential. She was very curious. So what we did was, first of all, employ the right teachers at the school with an open mindset, open to other ways of teaching, and they themselves open to learning. We put her in a class with everybody else. She didn't get any special treatment because we wanted to test if actually what we thought would work. And long story short, a year down the line, she was one of the best in class.
Wow.
She did very well. And as I speak to you now, she set for entrance tests at Broaders Primary, and she's at Broaders Primary. Something that we thought was a very ambitious goal to set. She managed to glide through with ease. She didn't realize that she was in boot camp, but she was in boot camp. But she had lots of fun.
Yeah. Do you do some similar interventions for those who are dyslexic or even those who suffer from other, deficiencies?
Sure. So the with my background in medicine, when it comes to learning challenges, if I can say, just to put them under one umbrella term, you have your dyslexia, you have children on the autistic spectrum.
Yeah, autistic, yeah.
There we go. You have children with isolated delays. It could be developmental, cognitive, speech, and so on and so forth. Kids who can't walk. So there's a real spectrum out there of what could be a challenge that a child has. But the approach is quite similar when you dig down to it. The approach is to look at the child and see what they can do and focus on that. Use that as a fulcrum point to teach them what they need to learn.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, red spaces. Let's deal with the name first.
Sure.
Why such a name, red spaces?
So the color red, punchy, can't take your eyes off it. You're wondering what's happening when there's a red tent or there's a red car. Who would own a red car?
It's not red for danger.
Oh, no. It's not red for danger. It's red for alertness and opportunity. So Red Spaces is a property company that we own. We buy land in and around Gaborone. We develop primarily residential buildings. Specifically apartments for rent. We also have commercial property as well in and around Gaborone. So that is actually the company we started when I left medicine to get into full-time entrepreneurship. So we've grown by leaps and bounds in that respect. And yeah, we're looking to the future.
What led to that initial decision? You're sitting somewhere and then deciding, oops, I'm going to ditch this medicine thing after the government has spent so much time training you. so much time in terms of not just time, resources.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, definitely. I believe that no matter what you studied, what university does is teaches you how to think. And I was fortunate enough to study medicine, and medicine is more of a timeless degree or qualification. So you could be out of...
Why do you call it timeless?
I call it timeless because the human body is the human body. So methods of treatment or protocols of treatment can change. But the skills that you develop in medical school, problem identification, problem solving, finding the answer, and so on and so forth, never change. So those are the skills that, for me, made the real difference in my life. I always knew that I can go back to medicine. I could catch up and go back to medicine, even though I would have lost a bit of time. But I can always go back to medicine. I can always do good. But one has to be true to themselves. And even though I love medicine and I could go back tomorrow, I do have other interests. And I always told my wife, I think I'd be a better old man if I never explored the other things that I want to do.
So regret minimization.
Oh yes.
And why real estate? What attracted you to property?
Sure. So my mother was in the property space. Growing up, that was one of her primary businesses. Real estate. She did very well in real estate. So it was I always saw it growing up. Mm-hmm. She had, rooms and houses and stuff like that. So
she did it at a small scale?
She did it at I would say a medium scale.
How many units?
So in and around Gaborone, I would say she was looking at about maybe 10 properties. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Single family residence.
It's single family residence. Mm-hmm. So what we did was when I was growing up, I was caught between two passions. So on one side was medicine. On the other side, I wanted to go into business. Mm. I left high school at the age of 15. So that was Form 5. I was one of the youngest people to write my Form 5 that year. Mm. So decision-making capabilities were limited, to say the least. Mm. So obviously, most people would want you to go for the quote-unquote safer option, which is medicine. And I did like medicine. I still do. Mm. But there was this bug, this itch that I had to scratch. So once I did what I had to do and I had studied, I had worked for about a year in Marina, I decided that, you know what, if there's a time to jump ship and try something, sooner better than later. Mm. Yeah.
One doctor who famously ditched the profession is Dr. Mampane, who started with Tikanelo College.
Yes.
But you chose rather to develop property. Tell us about the first initial property and the challenges around it.
So the first property we got into was in Tlokweng, multi-residential property, 5 units, 3 bedrooms each. When we identified it, it was run down, uninhabited, doors falling off, squatters living in it. It was so scary that my wife she wouldn't go past the gate. So she just looked and said, "Are you sure?" I said, "I'm sure. I think this is the one." So we acquired that one. We renovated it and put tenants in. Spent all that we had at the time doing that. And
what kind of property was it? Was it Matroko type of thing?
No, it was actually well built. We still own it today. It was actually well built, but not managed in the best way. So it was almost abandoned. When you hear about the abandoned buildings of South Africa, it was something like that, like a hijacked building in South Africa or in Hillbrook. So it was something along those lines. So it was also easy to acquire. So we did that and then went from there and renovated and put tenants.
Easy to acquire implies you got a loan easily. You qualified.
Yes, easy to acquire, meaning that we got the loan. When your background is medicine or career like medicine, it's also it pulls down certain hurdles. That you can encounter.
The respect that comes with
exactly.
With the title doctor.
Of course. Yeah. I remember when we finished and graduated, and the bank called and said, we notice you're on this type of account. We'd like to upgrade you to that type of account, doctor, so and so and so. So I
want to give you the black card.
When I give you this card so you can get in debt. So we're able to also leverage that before I left medicine because, we planned quite meticulously. So even in that duration when I was working in Marina and we're getting our ducks in a row, making sure that we had what we needed when we made the transition. So we're able to leverage what we had, get financing, use our savings, and then develop that property and put tenants in. I remember when we finished renovations, we had, I think, about 10,000 pula in our account, my wife and I. No other money elsewhere, nothing, nothing anywhere. I was not working, I was out of a job, and she was a student.
At the
because
time.
yeah, she was just graduating law school. So I was like, hey, did I make the worst decision of my life pouring money into this thing? So a week later, tenants were signing leases, occupying the buildings, we were getting our security deposits, and we've grown from there. So
Wow,
yeah.
this is great. And then how did you then grow leaps and bounds to now? Can you just give a genesis of your growth a little
Sure.
bit?
So when it comes to property, it's been a domino effect. So the first property gave rise to the second one, and so on and so forth. Because we bootstrapped our way into the first one, we're able to pull out a lot of equity, if you will, relatively faster. So we didn't put a
We're
lot.
talking about equity release.
We're talking
from
about
these properties.
Yeah, so we're talking about equity release in that you are. The thing about equity release as well, you need to be quite creative in how you, the price at which you acquire your property, how much you're putting into it, and the prospective valuation you'll get.
I teach you must push for at least 20% discount.
Oh yes,
that's what I teach in my mentorship classes.
That's beautiful, and I'm an avid follower of the podcast. I try and have a little notebook where I jot down the nuggets pertaining to real estate.
Yes.
So you really want to, you make money when you buy, or when you acquire the property. That's actually when you make the most money.
I wish you could repeat that because that's so powerful.
Yeah, you make money when you buy, whether you are buying the land, whether you are buying like a distressed property or whatever else it is, you make money at the point of sale when you first enter the deal.
And why is that for rookies out there who may not understand? Why is it that you make money when you buy?
So it's very the money that you make on the far end when your tenants are now in and you're paying back the loan and so on and so forth is sort of fixed, whereas the money that you're making, quote unquote making, or saving, if I can say, the money that you're saving and the front end is a lot of that is in your control. So if a property is listed for 1 million pula and you buy it for 1 million pula and you have your metrics there, you're going to make this percentage and so on and so forth. I could have the same metrics, the same prospects and everything like that, forecasting, but if I buy it for 800,000 pula, I'm already 200,000 pula ahead of you. So I've already made money, quote unquote, before the race even started. So I'm already ahead. So you need to be very intelligent with that and squeeze everything you can out of that initial deal.
You mentioned an interesting word, metrics. So the question arises, what are the key metrics that you focus on when you get into a deal?
Sure. So the cost of the property is one. I mean that's the main thing, right? You need to know which weight class you're punching at, if I can say, if you're a boxer. So you're looking at the price of the property. You're looking at your goal if you're renovating or buying to lease, as in to get tenants and lease out, or you are buying or renovating or whatever, developing to sell. So those are two different things also that I think people can mix up quite often. If your goal is one or the other, you would treat the deal differently. So an early exit versus a late exit, even if you're selling, and so on and so forth. So if you look at the area you're buying into, the occupancy rates there, you drive around, you see if people actually want to live there or it's the last choice. You call vacant properties around and see what is their interest and so on and so forth. You look at metrics such as, so on the financial side, you're looking at your rate of return, and so on and so forth.
The yield as well as the capitalization rate.
Exactly. So if you look at your cap rates, even around Gaborone, there'll be a great variation from one area to another when you look at average cap rates. So you need to be very intelligent. The other thing is you need to position the type of property you're developing in the right place. So a 4-bedroom, property in the outskirts of Tlokweng will give you a very low yield, unlike a 4-bedroom property near State House. So you need to know the market you're catering for, where they want to live or where they can afford to live, how much they can afford to pay, how far you can stretch them, and most importantly, can you keep up with the property? Can you keep adding value for the tenant? Can you make it so good that they don't want to leave? Can you retain them? Can you get that occupancy rate, close to zero as possible? We're fortunate enough that...
You mean the vacancy?
The vacancy rate. So we're fortunate enough that across all our properties, in the 7 years that we have been operating, we have had, I think it's a 1% vacancy rate across all properties.
Yeah, because you are mainly residential.
Oh yes, it's residential, and you can get a 2-bedroom apartment anywhere around Mogobe and so on and so forth. But what sets apart one 2-bedroom from the other? What makes you not want to leave this 2-bedroom for another? So that's what we focus on, being different, making sure that we retain our tenants.
So what is that? What is that differentiator that you are bringing?
So we start from the very beginning. So if you take one of our properties in Tlokweng, it comprises of 13 units spread out across 2 blocks of flats that we developed from scratch. So looking at that, what we looked at was that, okay, fine. One, it's close to Riverwalk. You could walk there if you wanted to. You could run there. It's close to a tarred road. It's close to everything. So proximity was great. Second thing, we thought, okay, what are people looking for? Are they looking for 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, and why? When we looked at the market that we're targeting young professionals. So you're looking at mainly your 2-bedroom units. We were fortunate enough that at the time when we were developing this particular property, Mr. Tebe Manake and her company had done a study.
Go Smart
Value. They had done a study that showed
I'm an investor in that property.
Oh.
Minority investor.
Wow.
Yeah.
In
the interest of full disclosure.
Sure. So there was a study that came out. I remember that at the time she gave a presentation somewhere around Main Mall where they were saying that 2-bedroom units are doing better than... it's 2-bedroom, followed by 1-bedroom, followed by 3-bedroom units. I think there was a comparative study that they did there. So we looked at stuff like that, like, oh, okay, so 2-bedroom better than bachelor pads, okay, and so on and so forth. How many can we fit on the property? If we did, half 1-bedroom, half 2-bedroom, how would it be? So we ran quite a lot of scenarios before we even broke ground, before we even went to the architect, before we even did anything. So what set us apart was we noted that people want to stay somewhere where it's close, secure, close to amenities, tar road, combis. They want the property to be taken care of after they sign the lease. They don't just want it to look nice and then they sign the lease and then there's nobody they want.
You're talking about maintenance.
Exactly. We're talking
both
about
preventative maintenance and response.
Exactly.
Response type of maintenance.
Exactly. They want to be able to reach you or one of your guys or one of your agents. They want to know that when they have a leak somewhere, they can call you or text you and it can be attended to maybe the same day. So we specialize in that. You'll find that.
So what do you do to ensure that happens? Do you have plumbers and electricians on call, or you employ your own?
So we believe in outsourcing. We can't be everywhere at every time. So what we did is we came up with, over the course of time, it's a system we've developed, is that we came up with a list of the top 20 things that can go wrong that a tenant wants attended to immediately, that will keep them in the house. What are those things? What would it cost to do those things? Sort those things out with private contractors or plumbers or electricians or whatever. And then we built a database. So we have strong relationships with tradespeople. So my wife and I travel a lot for our businesses. So we'll get a text, WhatsApp, and we're in Cape Town or whatever. And it's like, hey, the drain is backed up here. I'll get on the phone, call one of my guys, and then they'll be there. They'll send me a bill, and then we'll sort it out, and then that's that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So really, it's about being responsive.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what does the portfolio look like at the moment in terms of size, in terms of growth?
So with properties that we've developed, properties that we found within the family as well, because my mother was also heavily into real estate when I was growing up, so we manage properties that
you took over those under the umbrella.
We thought that it was about
second
time.
Generation wealth creation.
We thought that it was about time we also stepped out and helped out and did what was necessary. So when we look at all that, we're looking at I think close to 30 properties in and around Gaborone. And everywhere from residential to commercial. We have individual, tenants, your day-to-day people, to commercial property where we have tenants like Fern Mart and so on and so forth.
And what's your secret to what I can confidently define as exponential growth?
So be clear on your goals. Be clear on what you want to do. Learn as much as you can. And adapt quickly. It's we always say with my wife to our employees and everybody else that you can do all your homework and go in and be wrong. It's okay to be wrong as long as you've done your homework. But once you figure out that you're wrong or you're not on the right path, change quickly. Figure out the right path and get on it. So when it comes to property, we tried with the first one. That was our guinea pig. And then we saw what works, what doesn't, and then rinse and repeat. So when it comes to growth, you're looking at doing the basics, but then adding the X factor. And the X factor is speed. You need to be agile on your feet. You need to be fast, be quick. Because time waits for no one. If I'm doing deals at 3 times the speed you're doing deals, is because I'm looking at deals or prospective deals at 30 times
consistently.
Consistently.
In other words, you almost have a full-time acquisition strategy.
Sure. So if something comes about, we have to quickly assess whether it's worth our time, if it's something we can venture into, if we have enough leverage to pull it off, and so on. So we have our goals, we have our internal goals where we'd like to see ourselves in terms of the property side of things. So we're always on the lookout. So you have to, go through 100 frogs to find 5 princes.
That is very true. You have to kiss so many frogs before you find a princess.
Frogs, and it can take a lot of time, but if you have a systematic way in which you do things, it saves you a lot of time, a lot of hassle, and you don't venture into things that you are incompetent in doing.
How do you keep your thinking on the cutting edge of property? Are there particular books you read? Are there particular podcasts that you are attracted to, apart from Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom?
So Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom is the Bible of property, right, in Botswana. I think if you're out there and you want to get into property, make sure this is your go-to in the morning. Read your Bible, then listen to the podcast. I think when it comes to property, what we like to do is apply knowledge across different industries. So my wife and I are avid listeners to everything. We consume everything. So what we like to do is keep a pulse on the current trends, what people like, what people will like, what people are into, what people complain about. At some point we were going on to Facebook groups, name and shame and all those BW house, and we look at all the comments and see, okay, this is the main complaint that people have, that people have about this property or about landlords, about this, this area, and so on and so forth. So that is a part of educating yourself, keeping yourself informed. When you look at how to deal with tenants or customers, in our other businesses, you cut across. So you listen to podcasts, you read books that talk about, how to treat a customer.
Just bear with me. I'm actually, just carry on. I'm just trying to look for a book which defines exactly what you're saying.
Right. So
it's called Blue Ocean Strategy. Have you read that book?
Oh, yes. So
the way you talk, it's like you read that book and you're applying it.
So my wife and I have a subscription to Audible, which is like an Audible, an ebook, narrated ebooks app. So I think across our 2 libraries, we have more than 200 books that we're listening to on rotation. So Blue Ocean Strategy, Kiyosaki has a really good book on real estate as well.
Which one? Cash flow quadrant or rich dad, poor dad?
So there's rich dad, poor dad, there's cash flow quadrant, then there's the real book of real estate.
Yes, I have that one also, yeah.
So
this is where he actually profiles real estate experts.
Oh, yes.
In different areas.
Oh, yes. So he calls them almost like, his rich dad, but broken down into different areas. So if you look at the real book of real estate, he takes us through different kinds of property. He takes us through acquisition, management, how to assess a deal, and so on and so forth. So you take time and educate yourself. There's two ways to be educated. You can go to school or you can self-educate yourself. I believe you need to go to school to learn how to think, and then from there it's on you now to educate yourself about what you want to get into.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people are just thinking that they've started a profession and they're stuck in it.
Yeah.
And they don't even contemplate a transition. And you and your wife seem to have seamlessly, almost effortlessly. Obviously, we're looking at the results. We don't know about the sleepless nights, and I'm sure there have been plenty of those. But I'm just saying, how do you advise someone who's realized that they've chosen a career, they've got a degree in a particular field, but they want to transition, and is it doable? Help somebody work through that.
Sure. So I would say that, especially here in Botswana, when I talk to peers, people older than me, people younger than me, is that, education being free or provided by the government, there's a thing of, you have to go to university to study something. What the something is, or whether you're passionate about the something, is a secondary issue, but please just go do something. And I think that's the reason why a lot of people maybe find themselves after studying a 4-year degree or after leaving high school, and they aren't really passionate about the field that they're in. For me, I would say, if I was to advise somebody, and there's somebody across from me right now, I would say, one, the earlier the better. It's very difficult to be a manager in an organization, have all these responsibilities, and be on this career path and so on and so forth, and hate it and leave. It's easier when you are at the bottom of the organization. You have less to lose, you have less invested, and then you leave and transition and try and do something else. So I would say timing is important if it is in your control. The second thing I would say is that you have to really educate yourself about where you want to go. You have to plan in advance. We have other responsibilities apart from our passions. We have kids, you may be married, you may have a mortgage, you may have other things that require your attention or require you to manage them. So plan ahead. Make sure that you have your savings in order. Make sure that you try the industry you're going into on a small scale. And when it's time to pull the trigger, don't look back, and keep on being innovative. I'd say
they say you burn the bridges.
Yeah. You burn the bridges, but in a strategic way. So, for instance, in my case, I can always go back to medicine, obviously with a bit of a refresher here and there, but I can always go back to medicine. I keep relationships in the medical field.
Actually, correction, burn the boats.
Burn the boats.
The bridge you may need later, the boats you say, look, I'm not going to use these ever.
Sure.
Yeah.
So even the expression burn the boats, you look at, in the olden days when people would sail quite a lot, they'd get to a new land. Columbus would get to America.
Yeah.
And then because it would be so rough in the new land, they were scared of mutiny. The men would turn against them. So what they would do is they burn the boat so that the men can't go back.
Yes.
So they're forced to make it work.
And to actually win against the so-called savages.
There you go.
Whoever is there.
Against the natives. So for me is you have to start where you are. You can't throw caution to the wind in terms of your responsibilities, but you can definitely plan your exit strategy the same way you plan your retirement. You can plan your exit strategy to go try something else.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, in terms of real estate, what major projects are you now dealing with, and what can we look forward to?
So we've been fortunate enough to be able to merge real estate and education. So in 2025, you can look forward to Iana Primary School opening its doors, which will be a state-of-the-art center, catering for normative and non-normative ways of learning, cutting edge learning techniques employed into the 21st century, from preschool age all up until standard 7, where kids go into secondary school. So we want to be the preeminent center of excellence when it comes to early childhood education. When you're talking about early childhood education, you're talking about everything from preschool till about standard 3, standard 4. We want to take it further and say everything from preschool to standard 7. We want you to be competitive all throughout the world.
So what building are we going to be seeing in 2025?
So you're going to be seeing a state-of-the-art building which one incorporates different disciplines into the school architecture. So if you look at your typical school, it's classrooms, admin block, 2 things. If you look at the school that we would like to set up here in Botswana, you're looking at dynamic digital classrooms. You're looking at learning from home. So the teacher doesn't have to be in the same room as the student. You're looking at a focus on the arts. You're looking at digital literacy in terms of robotics and all that. So what we want is that when a child leaves Iana Primary, they can slot themselves into any field or any channel that they want. Another thing that we realize is that you can pick up the strengths of a child from early on, and then you can guide them into a certain channel, if you will, by drawing on their strengths, and they can be the best of the best on that channel rather than being average across many aspects. If I have no interest in agriculture, then channel me to robotics and let me be the best of the best there.
Wow. All right. So we can expect that in 2025 on the it's really a merge between real estate and education. But if I was to push you on the Zaga question, where is the more Zaga? Where is the money? Where is the money?
I would say the money is where you put your sweat. If I was to go full-time into education, I would make the same money as if I was to go full-time into real estate or full-time into medicine. You can make money like Ramampani doing education. You can make money like so on and so forth doing medicine or doing anything else, or like Mogobe doing real estate. So the money is where you put your sweat. It'll always be enough for you where you put your sweat.
What is what is, but real estate, obviously, because I'm in it, I have a little bias towards it, because of the fact that there's an element of passive income. I say an element because it's not total passive income. Education, where is the Zaga? Talking to someone listening to us, where do you really make the money, the differentiation? I'm looking for the money, I'm trying to find it. Of course, I do have successful real estate moguls like the late Ramazidi, who started Rainbow and then went into real estate, and they had both. But I want you to help the viewer appreciate the money element on education.
So with education, it's I would say there are 2 sides. There's the Zaka element, there's the money element, but there's also the passion element. So with education, you can't make money unless you have the passion for it, because unless you have the passion for it, you won't be innovative. I would say there's money to be made in education on all levels, from preschool to tertiary education. I think that's why we've seen such a proliferation of private institutions around Botswana in the past decade, I would say. So there is money to be made as long as you're offering the right product. So what we believe is that the education side of our business can outperform the real estate side of our business if we put in the right sweat equity, if we put in the right systems, if we put in the right everything, the right innovation. Now, when it comes to education being more hands-on, like you are alluding to, as opposed to real estate, which is a bit more passive, I would say that that's where the passion comes in. We wake up every day and go to the school because our heart is at the school. So it gives us life to be at the school. So growing the school and seeing the students and seeing the change that we're making gives us life. So we choose to be at the school rather than not.
Interesting. Now, between Iana Learning and Red Spaces, the two business side by side. Do you have any favorites? Is it a twin course, or is it like choosing between your children?
I'd say with real estate, it's a steady relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's a steady relationship. Whereas with education, every day is different.
Mm-hmm.
Every child is different, and it keeps us on our feet.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, for the stability, I love real estate. For the challenge, keeping you on your feet and making a difference, I love education.
Mm-hmm.
For the impact, I love medicine.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
You love all three.
I love all three.
Okay. Now, what did you say is the biggest surprise in terms of an aha moment that you've had? Let's start with on the Iana learning side, where you said, "This is interesting. This is a very significant, piece of awareness that I'm acquiring."
Sure. I would say on the school side, the biggest aha moment was how quickly we can make an impact in the life of a child.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of stories. I'll tell you one story where we had a child who came in to the school. The child, let's call her Mary, not her real name. Mary had quite a lot of challenges. So you're talking about speech delay, you're talking about being somewhere on the autistic spectrum, not being able to do a lot of things and doing a lot of things incorrectly, being behind with milestones and so on and so forth. Mary was with us for about a year. By the time Mary had left the school, 90% of the milestones that were delayed had now were now normal, and
wow.
She had qualified for Standard 1 at the school of her choosing, her parents' choosing. So you can see how quickly you can make an impact. So that was the real aha moment, and even bringing it home to our own child, to Iana.
Yes.
Iana of Iana Learning Academy.
Yes.
We saw how over the course of a year, it changed everything for her. She went from 0 to 100.
Yeah.
And that has been the sort of proof of concept that we had early on to say, you know what, you could really make an impact here. You could really take not just special education, but education in general. You could really take it somewhere in Botswana. You could introduce something different, not just for the money, but also to make an impact. And Mary could look back 20 years from now and say, I used to struggle with this as a child, but fortunately enough, this, that, and the other.
That's priceless, really. That's incredible.
Yes.
Aha moments on the real estate area?
Aha moments on the real estate side is how much detail you have to pay to everything that you do, especially when it comes to construction. One of the biggest aha moments was how much we could save on construction costs if we got the right people as opposed to the cheaper people. Yes. So building on the cheap is very expensive. That's a principle. That's a principle that we now live by. Building on the cheap, getting the wrong labor, getting the wrong materials will cost you enormously in the long run. So that was a painful aha moment on the
what had happened to come to that realization?
So we were developing a property. I think it was the first one. It was more renovation, so the stakes were a bit lower. You can only mess up a ceiling so much. But when we're talking about setting out a building, digging your foundations and pouring, what we had thought was that we would get a contractor who would essentially take care of the labor side and monitor the project, and we would take care of the material side. I think we spent almost 2x on material.
Oh no!
We spent almost 2x of what we should have spent on material, and even the monitoring on site. There was quite a lot of things that were not done correctly and stuff like that. So it showed us that you need to pay attention to every detail, and you need to get the right
have
person.
Professionals who do that on your behalf.
Oh yes, and that's something that we're doing now, where we look at also bringing in people who can manage the projects for us, because we're spread thin across multiple businesses. Yeah.
Can't you just hire a project manager?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I think because we are a smaller firm, We choose to take it project by project, and therefore that model works really well for us, where you have a project manager who does everything. But I think also me being me and my wife being who she is, we prefer to be so hands-on that I think that the job of the project manager would become obsolete.
Yeah.
So we spend sleepless nights going over plans and every square, centimeter of the floor space and how things look and how things will be. So we really love it. When it's time for a project, we're all in, and then we take a hiatus, we take a break, and then wait for the next one.
Let's talk about financial success. I mean, a lot of people want the outcome, they want the success, they want the millions, but they may not necessarily put the effort.
Sure.
So from your point of view, how does it feel to actually have, quote unquote, what society perceives as financial success?
I would say that it's obviously it feels good to have some stability. I think what people crave and long for is stability. You want to feel stable. You want to feel like tomorrow there'll be a roof over your head. Your kids will be able to go to school, and so on and so forth. So for me, I don't think it's an element of just working hard. That two sides of the coin. I think there's hard work, and I think you have to put your hard work into the right place. I think
like smart work.
Smart work. I think the lady selling on the street and waking up in the morning, and doing all she does throughout the day is working hard, and God bless her for that.
What she does with the money is working smart.
Exactly.
That she makes.
Exactly.
In terms of what investments she targets.
Exactly. So it's all about, after you work hard, what's the next step? What's the flip side of the coin? How do you make that money work for you? How do you acquire that money in a more smart way? How do you educate yourself? And I think it all emanates from a growth mindset. You need to be willing to learn. My wife and I, we usually say that we know nothing. We are not experts in anything.
Wow, I'm into that.
Yeah,
I'm into that.
We know nothing, and we are not experts in anything. If a teacher is hired at the school, we are curious to know what they know, rather than teaching them what we know. If I meet a plumber, I'm curious to know what he knows, because he may add to my knowledge something that I take for granted that I think I know. Yeah.
And now let's deal with I want just to bring it all together, the Forbes thing, but perhaps under Forbes, let's just ask you, because some skeptics are saying we've had 2 Forbes under 30 2 years in a row. What is it really worth it for the country? Is it a waste of time? As a participant and as a beneficiary, what would you say are the tangible benefits of this Forbes under 30, especially in the context of Botswana, where it has come 2 years in a row?
Right.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to Forbes, there's young people in Botswana who are doers. That they want to do stuff, and Forbes for me is the main benefit is around exposure to different people, how they think. Investors are brought in. You get to learn about what they expect when they do deals. You get to be challenged by what people are doing out there. The bar is set pretty high, so you get to also say, yikes, hey, I need to pull up my socks and do better. So I think that's the benefit of Forbes, is introducing or exposing our young people to another world or other entrepreneurs who are doing other things
at the highest level.
So if you take this year's forum, for example, there was a billionaire that we got to hear from
Tanzania.
Exactly. This man is in everything from cotton to cement to agriculture to you name it, he's in there. A young person, and you get to say, okay, this is possible. You get to hear from performing artists. We had Davido come talk to us
all the way from Nigeria. He actually flew in a couple of nights ago.
Oh yes.
I met him at the State House.
Oh, beautiful.
We were both invited to have dinner with HE.
Beautiful. So he was talking to us, and he was so there's something for everyone. I think that's the point I'm driving to, is that there's something for everyone, something for every field that you may want to venture into, and more than just sort of connections, as in I am going to Forbes and I'm going to meet Mogobe, who is a billionaire, and then he's going to invest in my company, and then that's the benefit to Botswana. I think that that's not the only channel. The channel could be that I'm meeting Mogobe, who is a mover and a shaker in the real estate and other spaces, and I'm inspired by the way he does business to then do the same thing in Botswana. Or I am exposed to other methods that he employs to grow his business, and I do that in Botswana. So it's all about bridging that gap between movers and shakers who have the passion and want to do something, and inspiring them to reach for the stars. Yeah.
Great stuff.
Great.
Did you yourself, apart from this billionaire, were you impressed by any particular presentation, and if so, why?
Oh yes, the billionaire.
Back to the billionaire.
That was a great talk. It was a panel discussion where it was really free flowing, and his ambition, his humility, in the face of having all the wealth that he has.
He was once kidnapped, eh?
Did
someone ask him about that?
Exactly. He was once kidnapped. He shared that story. He was bound, and I think it was over the course of 9 days that they kept him, and he was released without ransom. His story is quite...
I wonder how he managed to get released without ransom.
His answer was that the poor were praying for him. So he talked about all the philanthropic things that he was involved with, wells.
Prior to the kidnapping.
Exactly. So he felt like, the poor were on his side, that he still had more good to do in the world. And that was his saving grace. Because
it was unconditional, his release.
Exactly, without ransom. So the level of thinking that he was at, the boldness that he had, I think it's something that spoke to me personally, that, I'm not an oddball, trying to reach into different markets, trying to learn different things. He talked about how he would go into an industry and learn everything about the industry and be bold enough to challenge the big players in the industry. He was talking about going into manufacturing soap and so on, and the likes of Procter & Gamble were already in the space, and he took them head on and beat them at their own game. So that spoke to me personally, and where else would I have gotten to be within 5 meters
if it wasn't for Forbes?
Yeah.
And to realize that he's just an ordinary human being like you.
Exactly.
There's nothing extraordinary about him.
Exactly.
All right, as we conclude our conversation, I think there's a part where maybe as a real estate person, I want you to settle the age-old argument as to strategy. Is it better to buy and hold, or it's better to buy and flip, to buy and sell, in terms of an overall long-term strategy in real estate?
Right. I think there's no perfect answer. However, I think you have to identify your reason why, and it has to align with your goals. People have been successful in buying or developing and then quickly selling off property and making the money, right there and there, and exiting quickly. People have made money and been moguls by holding property for tens, of years, and for generations, and there's a trickle-down effect and so on and so forth. So I think you need to look at your goals, you need to look at your specific situation, and really identify your why. Why are you building a house to sell? What are you trying to get to? Can you, instead of getting a once-off payout, could you take the payout that you're getting year on year and invest that? And then now you're talking exponential growth, right? Now you're talking exponential returns, because the money that you're making, year on year, you are able to invest in the stock market or whatever else. So you're getting paid twice for the same amount of money. Look at the inflation rate. If I get paid out now, where am I going to put that money? What am I going to do with it? Is it just going to depreciate in the bank?
Yeah.
Or am I going to do something smart with it? Maybe I want to do another venture with it that will give me a higher return than had I held the property. So I think you really need to identify your why.
But you yourself, which strategy have you adopted?
Hold.
You've settled the issue right there. You've settled it right there.
Always
Need
hold.
we say more? Yeah.
Always hold.
Okay, now the state of the market and the prospects in terms of real estate. How does it look with the, when 2-3 years ago, the interest rates were very, very low. Now,
Sure.
look where they are, and we don't know whether they're going to keep climbing. We keep wondering whether the Bank of Botswana is going to increase them at any time.
Sure.
So what do you say about the state of the real estate economy or the real estate market? Positive or negative?
Once again, maybe I'll give the more... I'll answer like an attorney. I'll answer like my wife. I'll say it depends.
Yeah.
But one thing...
We never want to get trapped,
you know? Yeah.
We attorneys are always careful.
I've learned a thing or two from her.
Yeah.
I would say one, the elements you can control and elements you can't control. You can't be ruled by fear. If the interest rates are climbing and you want to hold off and you feel like, in the future it might be better, well, in the future it might be worse. So it might be the time to enter now, rather than waiting. So you can never get it all the way perfect. Know your numbers, see what works. If it looks like it works, if the trend looks like it's going to go in the right direction, if the area that you are developing in or buying in, it looks like it's a high growth market, people are developing around, it's nice, it's good, crime is low, go in, why not? And if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. Then you learn and you do something different the next time around. I would say that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So
now,
what are you waiting for? Get in, get your hands dirty,
Yeah.
and come out with a lesson, come out with profit. Yeah.
All right. And in that context, are you choosing to stay on the residential arena, or you want to expand to other areas like commercial and industrial and even hospitality?
Sure. So not to reveal too much, but to reveal just enough. But we are heavily looking at getting into the commercial side of things. We're already in the commercial side of things, but on a smaller scale.
Yeah, because multi-residentials are commercial, let's face it.
Exactly, yeah. So when we're talking about leasing to businesses or malls and so on and so forth, we've seen the benefit of having quote-unquote big clients as tenants, and the stability that can provide in terms of your rentals, your returns,
cash flow.
Exactly. You can bank on that. You can take that to the bank and say, I have this, and you'd have a better deal than if it was just a residential, which can be up and down. So that's definitely something that we're looking into. But I'd say generally in our company, we've been bitten by this bug, which is education. And we really want to shake things up and
in the education space.
Oh yes, and
maybe using real estate as not as a weapon, but as essentially as a tool.
Yes. So even if you look at the profit that we make from the real estate side, what do you do with it? We choose to put it on the education side. Yeah, because our rationale is that not only are we looking at the money side of things, but we're looking at the impact that we can have on the country, a legacy that can outlive us. We're relatively young. My wife is 30, I'm 31.
Yeah.
So we're relatively young, but we're looking at 20 years from now. Will we be more proud that we have 100 apartments, or will we be more proud that we produced 100 movers and shakers from our institution?
I would suggest that is a false choice. You can have both.
You can, but once again, I respectfully, I think also where you put your sweat is where you need to choose your struggle, I think. And I think for us especially,
I'm saying this because you look at some of the moguls like Dada, they started in the motor, went to chicken, they went into other real estate. They did not limit themselves. So I happen to be of that school of thought.
Yes.
That if it resonates with you, and if you are getting the initial signals from the universe, from God, that it's working, keep all of it working.
Keep all the ducks going.
Yeah, that's what I believe. I don't know whether I've been able to persuade you to change your position there.
Yeah, I think I'm somewhere in between. We believe, in the Bible it talks about going from strength to strength and from glory to glory. And you kind of have to get something done, get it done right, and then move on to the next thing. And I think even when it comes to the way we've done business, we've always made sure that if we're doing a project or we're doing residential or whatever, we do it right, and then we move on to education. We do it right, and then we move on to the next thing. So that we're not building on weak foundations.
Last question: politics,
Sure.
the reset agenda. What is it about, and has it impacted you or your business in the private sector? Is it now a year and a half into it really coming to fruition for the nation?
Sure. I think His Excellency and his cabinet have done quite a lot. They're trying to put a lot on the ground. If you look at even the way our ministries have been orientated, I'd say even starting 3, 4, 5 years ago to today, you can see the strides that government is trying to make.
With the Ministry of Entrepreneurship.
There we go. The Ministry of Entrepreneurship. A few things are being digitized now for entrepreneurs, whereby you can get on your cell phone and see who owns Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom, who is the major shareholder there.
Yeah.
So stuff like that. The trickle-down effects of a grander scheme. And I think government moves slow by nature, but I think we also need to look at the intention. The intention is there, and I think the will is there. It will take time for us to see all the results that His Excellency would love for us to have today, but we have to look at the intention and look at what's being put on the ground. The Ministry of Entrepreneurship, I think it's about a year old or so. They were celebrating, I think, a year anniversary. Was it yesterday?
Yesterday on Monday night.
Right. So if they were celebrating a year, then whatever they did in that year, we're probably going to see 2-3 years from now on the ground.
Yes.
So I think we need to look at the intention and say, what, we're on the right track. Let's keep going. Let's go after it. And I think it's also the onus is on us,
as entrepreneurs.
Exactly.
Or as the public.
At both. If you look at an entrepreneur, you're looking at problem solving. There's a problem, solve it, and you'll get paid. So the government can make that can put things in place to make that easy to do. However, it will never be simple to do. It will never be Mompoloki. No. There'll always be challenges there. There'll always be bureaucracy. There'll always be red tape, no matter what the government tries to do. So are you resolute? Are you
determined?
Exactly.
Do you have resilience?
Do you have that can-do spirit where you can push through when things are good? Then you should be able to push through now. Don't say I'm waiting till badirayana or whatever. Do it now.
All right. Time of the show where you get to hit me with a question. Do you have a question for me?
Sure. I think my question for you would be, in terms of the impact you want to have with Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom, what's the end point? Is there an end point?
We're currently on the verge of 12,000 subscribers.
Sure.
We want to get to 100,000 and beyond. But at the same time, we want to really live our tagline, which is to enthuse, energize, and inspire.
Sure.
Because I personally believe that entrepreneurship is the key. You've seen when I invited you that I said entrepreneurship holds the answer to most of our challenges.
There you go.
Because entrepreneurship is really about increased productivity, increased outcomes, increased outputs, exponential growth. So that mentality of growth, because if you look at the Bible, I heard you quote the Bible earlier, it attaches a lot of importance to growth. Don't despise small beginnings and keep growing. So I think the Nuggets as a podcast will serve two purposes. One is to position our brand as Mogobe Incorporated and Mogobe Group of Companies in a very central position where we have a certain amount of credibility, and we are able to leverage that for growth.
There you go.
I mean, we're very clear. We already have our 5 to 10 year plans, and we have our 15-year plans, and we believe that as the podcast grows, so will grow. But that's on the selfish side. But on the more general side, we want to really enthuse people about entrepreneurship. I mean, we've made it possible for somebody to know about Dr. Welcome. People did not know about Dr. Welcome.
Sure.
Tomorrow, people will then get in touch with you.
Sure.
They will say, which books were you recommending? Then you talked about Blue Ocean Strategy. Are there any other books? And that's how the spirit and culture of entrepreneurship grows.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
Thank you. And I would say as a parting word that, the impact that the podcast has, it cuts across different industries as well. I know that you're very passionate about real estate, but I believe that the principles that you share here, whether you have this guest or the other, the principles cut across many industries.
Yes.
And that it's upon us, the listeners, to also look in and see how we can apply the wisdom that we get from each and every podcast into whatever field that we are venturing into. So thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great.
Look at that camera.
Sure.
Leave the viewer there with one final sort of summary message as we part. Get
Sure.
ready to part.
I would say for any young person out there, know that you can do it. Know that the sky is the limit. I know that you hear that quite a lot, but the only way you can know it really and truly is to test it out for yourself. Believe in yourself. Believe that you can learn anything. Don't be limited by your background or what you have studied in the past. Know that you can go into other industries, other sectors, and you can make an impact, and you can make money, and you can get paid. Learn, never stop learning. You know nothing. You are always a student. You know nothing.
That sounds like something Plato, Socrates once said. It's a very good. We know nothing. The more I know, the
less I know.
The less I know.
Yeah.
All right. Now, can you share all your contact details, sir?
Sure. So, Dr. Welcome Matsemane, please follow Iana Learning Academy on Facebook. We are passionate about education. We're passionate about early childhood education. We believe your child is a star. So come through, visit the academy, and see what we have to offer. Red spaces, look out for new and exciting properties that will be available soon. And
and what any contact phone numbers or plot numbers or anything of the kind?
Sure. You can reach me 76234560. You can look for me, Welcome Matsemane, on Facebook, and I would love to connect with you. Yeah.
Okay.
Iana Learning Academy as well on Facebook. Yeah. You can connect with us there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mogobe.
Cheers.
Yeah.